A lot of students are, and even people in general, are just they're taught a certain way, right? They're shown during their career path. Mostly, when they're born, they go to elementary school, then middle school. Most of their path is already laid for them. High school, then they know they have to go to undergrad. But after that, once they come out of that, they really don't have a path. That's when they're actually given the paddle and they have to row themselves, right? So how do you teach someone that, hey, you're a smart individual, you worked hard, this is how you can take all that you've learned, really amplify it, and reach the next level, right? So it could be from either unleashing their confidence, right? Maybe they're a little too shy, right? Maybe making them a little more professional in terms of how do they interact with other people, how do they not come across, cocky, but do come across humble and confident, and teaching them and showing them what is possible. And because a lot of people self-eliminate themselves and say no to themselves. But through leaders and through the network we've created, we've shown people that just because you have a smaller, like less GPA, or you don't come from a top 10 school, or you don't have the amazing industry background or the right skill set, doesn't mean you can't do it. Having all those things, if you don't have them, you can create new skill sets and new positive things about yourself and take it to the next level. So when I was at UCLA, went to business school there, and I reached out to the alumni from the business school, and each and every one that I met, they're all at different banks, from Morgan Stanley to Goldman Sachs and everything in the middle. They all helped me without without me paying them or anything like that. They're very genuinely interested in my success. And when I learned all this stuff and was able to get into a banking job, right, or over time in other better and better positions, I didn't want to just have that knowledge and rise in my career. I could have spread that to other people and see if they can be successful as well. And that's what I started doing. And slowly that grew. So the motivation is, maybe, if I know all these skills and these tools, yeah, I can be successful on my own. But what if I taught this to someone else and they will be also successful? Or what if I taught this to 10,000 other kids and they will together be successful? So then you have an army of really successful talent in the world. First thing that happened was I met this student at UCLA, and she was having some trouble with breaking in. Super smart girl, smarter than me, had all the right skills, but just couldn't put them together in a marketable package, right? So that's when I didn't start Leaders then. Leaders just somehow became what it is today. Initially, it was just me teaching one-on-one, right? And then it became one-on-two. Slowly, more people started coming up, and then I was like, okay, I might have some things that I'm doing right, or telling students something that I'm doing right. So I came to Toronto, which was my home city, alma mater, and I went to University of Toronto, and we had a workshop where I invited all my colleagues from the finance industry to help just the engineering folks understand what else they can do other than engineering. And that session was the first time I spoke publicly, and some of my friends also spoke publicly. And I realized, what, it was pretty successful. People liked what they heard. It was only like 2-3 hours long. What if we could teach them even more? What if we could teach them step by step, from the resume to how do you act in an interview, to how do you do the technical parts of it, and how do you combine it all, right? So we did a pilot program. I said, what, I reached out to University of Toronto. I said, I'll do a pilot workshop. I did that for all the engineering students, and it got a good feedback. So I said, okay, this is great. And then slowly, now the idea became, okay, now this is something formal. Now this has a foundation. How do you take this and actually grow it bigger? And then instead of just being a hobby, it became a much more formal setting. And then it just spun into much bigger and larger events. When we decided to expand, we decided that, hey, we'll expand in the US and Canada, because it was easier to travel. It's just easier that way. But then, once you run out of schools or major cities, then you look elsewhere, you look outside. And there's a lot of stuff happening in Asia, there's a lot of stuff happening in Europe. So we decided that we're going to go to Hong Kong. It seemed like a big hub. So we went to Hong Kong, and it was an amazing workshop. In Hong Kong, people came from all over the world, in Asia as in, from Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, Shanghai. And then they said, why don't you come teach workshops there? So, and hence the program grew. Now, the network grew with it. We have now students who are here in Toronto, let's just say, who are connected to kids at Stanford. or kids in Stanford who are connected to kids in Hong Kong and Singapore. And they might not know each other because they go to different schools, but now they do, and now they can leverage off of each other's experience, and either they help each other or help themselves, learn from each other, and grow together. So the network is definitely working. Is it there yet? No, right? I think over time, once we further develop it and have a proper structure around it, I think it can definitely go places. I think it is definitely a key aspect. I think I have, while in investment banking, I didn't have much time outside of banking. I was working. So through the workshops, I made a lot more friends, right? And every year, those friends literally double. So like this year, we were in New York for our annual New York Leaders Dinner, which was the first of its kind. And we had like 12 students who had never met each other and were from different schools in the world. And they all came in and we had dinner together. So I think I've made more friends this way. And and the level of friendship is much higher than just a professional. It's a very personal friendship. So we text each other, we have each other on Facebook, we talk to each other, and we're part of each other's lives in many different ways. So definitely that part of it is definitely working. And I think fast forward 5 or 10 years, we'll definitely have about 1,000 real life network. If you think of Facebook or think of LinkedIn, those are virtual networks, and they do a good job, but there's no in-person network. One of the dreams I have is to have an in-person network where people can actually talk to someone and know them by name, and they might come from very different backgrounds, but they are connected because of this. I think having a younger mentor class is much more beneficial than having someone who's much more experienced and older, because you can connect at at many more points than if you were an older, more seasoned banker or consultant, in my opinion. And the reason is, I can have a one-on-one conversation with you, right? And I can understand when you say things that are of this generation, rather than if I was 50 and I didn't understand those concepts, Like for me, and it's not just finance. In every industry now, I've noticed that it's becoming younger and younger. If you take even the venture capital community, when you think about venture capital, you think much older, old school, legendary investors, right? From Warren Buffett to Conway and all that. But now, firms are opening up to younger talent because they can connect better with the CEOs that are younger, right? A lot of the CEOs that are starting companies, they're not starting companies when they're 40. They're starting companies when they're 20. Right? Or when they're 25. So how do you connect with someone who's 25? So a person who's 25 will connect much better with someone around his age. So I think having the younger image is really beneficial and has helped us and the students that come to our workshop a lot. And I think and people have a strong image about it. People are confident in the job, confident in the industry being a industry of that age bracket, and I think it's going places.